Well, this is JD and Christina Manier with Concerted Commander Radio Show and AUN Television. And we're here at the 2022 National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And our guest is David Tice, film producer. And it's real good to wrap up this convention with you, David.
It is good.
Well, thank you. I'm here with two great friends and great patriots. Glad to be with your audience.
I must say, this has been a really excellently done convention in my book.
I agree.
Just access to the people and tremendous folks wanting to communicate.
Yes.
They expand, communicate. That's the whole message here.
Yeah, well, you had such a line of communicators, from those that nobody knows to those that people do know and that want to be known. It's all about communication here.
And David, it's so good that you've been able to circulate with a lot of religious broadcasters because you have something, we talked at CPAC, that is so important. When we talk about education, it's so important for America to understand the vulnerability of our electric grid. Go ahead and talk about that.
That's right.
Well, thanks for having me. We certainly have a very vulnerable power grid.
Yeah,
and
we do.
I've produced this documentary. It should be out by July 15th with our formal launch at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas. The soft launch hopefully around May 1st.
Wow.
And we're talking about the four major threats to the power grid. One is physical attack. Secondly is a electromagnetic pulse attack. Thirdly, a cyber attack, and fourthly, a geomagnetic disturbance. And all those attacks could essentially bring the power grid down for nationwide for a period of 6 months to 18 months. And if that happens, as many as 75 to 90% of Americans could die.
And I think you just didn't pull those numbers, out of your hat. Those are figures from a congressional EMP commission, if I remember, that spanned 17 years in getting this information collected from America's top scientists.
Exactly. And so you might think that how in the world could that high percentage die? But really, there are millions in hospitals or that rely on daily medication, insulin, etc. every day, and therefore if you don't have continual resupply, those people will die.
Wow.
Our municipal water systems require electricity to operate, and people don't have that much water stored at home. They don't have their own wells, and therefore there have been survival studies that have said within 3 days individuals will die without water. And then you shut off electricity, then you're not going to have the gas pumps working, you're not going to have, you will have chaos, you will have, you will not have standard operating procedure for food being delivered, and therefore you're not going to be able to go to your Kroger and pick up food, and you won't have your Uber Eats, and then you will have chaos in the streets, you will have people at each other's throats, literally, killing each other to feed their kids.
Absolutely. I mean, you totally lose the supply chain if there's no electricity.
That's right.
That's right. It comes to a standing, screeching halt. And folks here, broadcasters, they need electricity as well.
That's right.
We're not using Dixie cups and strings.
They need power.
Right. And we've been out beating the bushes here for a couple days, and this has resonated with broadcasters.
Yeah, it has.
You've commanded their attention.
Yeah.
And we're so thankful you're here.
Well, this is a great audience, Christians across the land, and especially in the industrial heartland or Florida and Tennessee, understand the threats, and they understand that we have bad people around us that might want to bring us down. And then even if you don't think that's going to happen from a nation state, 60 Minutes just did a story talking about Metcalfe, California, which is also covered in our film. This is a 2013 attack outside Silicon Valley. And it was found that as as few as one terrorist could essentially bring down a substation.
Yes.
And it was later determined, through a FERC report, that as few as 9 substations could, if they were all taken down, if they were the critical key substations, it could cause a coast-to-coast blackout.
That was an article in the Wall Street Journal, and Mr. Wellinghoff, you're right, put that out. So this is a critical issue at such a time as this.
We are in that time, aren't we?
And I think your film points out Ukraine had their grid taken down with cyber attacks in 2014, 2015, and obviously that's going on right now as we speak.
Right. In fact, we had Nicole Perlroth, who is the famed author of a book, They Tell Me This Is the Way the World Ends, and she's a New York Times cybersecurity reporter. And when she went over to the Ukraine after these attacks, she found that they were telling her that they felt like these attacks were more of a test run for what the Russians might do against the United States. And then when Putin threatens us today over us providing fighter jets to the Ukraine, there have been threats back to us, and I know we're fearful, and I'm sure there's been some backroom talk about, well, do you want your power grid to go down?
Exactly.
Because we had the Secretary of Energy under Joe Biden, Jennifer Granholm, recently was on a Sunday morning talk show, and she was asked about the vulnerability of the power grid, specifically our transformers, and she was asked if our adversaries are inside our grid, which means that they would have trapdoors or malware, etc. And she admitted, yes, they are inside, and they could likely bring down our grid at their choosing.
Wow. Well, in the vulnerability of the grid coming down and everything happening, not just in Europe, but here right now in our backyard, there are solutions that you are presenting even in this movie. Is that correct?
Yes. So we've outlined multiple solutions. One of our biggest is that this needs to be paid for. The military has essentially hardened their military equipment, our missiles and our command control centers, etc. And we have a 4-star general who is the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he said that yes, we at STRATCOM are prepared, but the civilian infrastructure has not been prepared. So if we can harden that grid, then it's going to cost, the estimate is around $100 per citizen or so, not a huge number.
No.
And we should do this, but we're arguing, instead of getting the utilities, argue with them to pay for it and having them gripe and moan. And let's just have the government pay for it. And frankly, I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm not about trying to get the government to pay for things, because it comes from the people. So this, in this case, will come from the taxpayer, not the ratepayer. But they're the same people, obviously in different proportions. But we need to get this done, and I think that's one remedy.
Well, we need to let people know how they can follow this film, because it's coming out in the next few months. Can you have a website?
Yes, our website is griddownpowerup.com. And we chose that second part of the byline because kind of a double entendre here, because let's choose power up rather than grid down. And frankly, this is going to require power to the people. The people are going to have to stand up. They're going to have to demand our legislators and our regulators take action. So really, this is about power, and it should be up, not down.
Amen. Amen. And you have solutions, as Christine pointed out.
Absolutely.
And you have letters that go out to these legislators, and you give power to the people because you're educating the people with this film.
Yeah, that's a great point. So just to touch briefly on that, we have, you go to our website, you can soon just be able to provide your home address and a few clicks of your mouse, and you will have 8 letters pre-written that will go to your 2 U.S. congressmen, your 2 state legislators, your 2 U.S. senators, your adjutant general, your National Guard, your chairman of your utilities, state utilities commission, and your FEMA emergency director, urging them to take action now and to protect our grid.
So it's not just a movie. You said it's a movement.
It's a movement.
You want to share that a little bit? We have a few
so,
of that.
Essentially, there's a lot of movies that end up, having being great causes, and people watch them, and they end up getting a little bit irritated, and then they're told to go to their stationary desk and, pull out an envelope and lick a stamp, and then nothing happens. In this case, we have a powerful, email campaign. We'll be tracking all those people per district. We will be donating 20% of all proceeds that come in from the film to 501c3 organizations that will have a history of fighting for grid protection, and that will be fund on-the-ground warriors to help defend the grid. And then we will also be working with various political groups. We will be hopefully forming a super PAC, in order to fund congressional and state legislators that care a lot about grid security.
That's good.
And the hardware, the software, everything's made in the United States.
Exactly.
Well, we want to thank you for AUN-TV and Constituent Command Radio Show, and thank you, National Religious Broadcasters Convention, for hosting us in 2022 here in Nashville. And Dave, thank you for coming on the show.
No, it's great to be with you guys, and your listeners are very blessed to have you guys providing information to them.